Welcome to this introduction to Ashtanga yoga. In the beginning of the video, I will be explaining a little bit about the background of the practice, so you know your basics, and then there will be a guided sequence which equips you to be able to develop your own self-practice in Ashtanga yoga. And also, if you learn it by heart, you will be able to join Mysore-style Ashtanga yoga classes. Maybe with me one day, who knows? Okay, so what is Ashtanga yoga? Ashtanga yoga means, literally translated, 8 limbs, Ashtau 8 and Anga limb. And this is basically saying that asana, so the postures that we do, the physical practice, is one of 8 limbs of what can conclude a well-rounded yoga practice. So the limbs, I will make another video about explaining the limbs in more detail, but we have yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. These are Sanskrit terms, and it means yama is observances. So the first yama, there's 5, is ahimsa, or non-violence. That's trying to not harm other living beings and also not harm yourself in the way you conduct yourself in the world, for example. That's why a lot of people who practice yoga are vegetarian or vegan. But like I said, more about those limbs in another video. Niyama are roughly observances to yourself and the outside world, for example, cleanliness, self-study, etc. Asana are the postures, like I mentioned already. And then pranayama means breath control. So there's techniques that you're doing seated and then doing some breath stuff. That's very superficial. But basically you're learning how to control your breath and reap some effects of that practice for your mind and your body. And then dharana means sense withdrawal. So in the yogic practice, we're kind of trying to draw all of our senses inward and not be constantly distracted by what's going on around ourselves. So that is a very valuable tool nowadays in this world that is full of stuff that kind of just comes at your senses and makes your mind go, thinking all these different paths that can come up when you perceive things. And yoga, at least from Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, the definition of yoga is chitta vritti nirodha, which means the cessations of the fluctuations of the mind. So you're trying to still all that chaotic mind stuff that is going on. So that's at the heart of yoga, or what yoga is. Okay, and then after that you have pratyahara. Sorry, I already said that. You have dharana, which is concentration. You have dhyana, which is meditation, and then you have samadhi, which is absorption, or what some people call enlightenment. So yeah, that would be the goal of yoga. I don't know if people are actually reaching enlightenment. I don't know. Anyways, like I said, more about the limbs of Ashtanga yoga in a separate video where there's a little bit more detail. And usually a lot of people start with the limb of asana because it's the one that is easiest to kind of get into, even if it's difficult to practice asana. You have some instructions and you just do something. While following the yamas and niyamas takes a bit more mental effort, and this can be quite challenging because there's always situations that can make you stop trying to follow those rules to be a decent human being, if you know what I mean. So the important thing is to just keep trying to be a decent human being and cultivate that. Okay, so in Ashtanga yoga, in the asana practice, one of the most important cornerstones is the breath. So breathing, a lot of people kind of skip over to develop a good breathing habit, and later they wonder why they might be getting a bit exhausted or too exhausted from practice, or why they're not catching certain things coming up in their body. That might be a sign that what you're doing could, over the long run, repetitively maybe make your body create discomfort. So I was from the beginning instructed to really pay attention to my breath, and I am reaping the benefits of that now. So when you focus on your breath as the biggest centerpiece, you will notice it changing when there's a challenging asana or an asana that your body is not really accepting right now. So you're able to ease off instead of pushing, because you're focusing on keeping your breath steady and not forcing an asana. Because usually when we force an asana, the breath stops being steady. And the breathing technique that we use in Ashtanga yoga, they used to call it Ujjayi pranayama. Nowadays, people just call it breathing with sound. So you close the epiglottis and create this ocean sound, and you're breathing just through your nose. So some people also call it the Darth Vader sound, but basically it sounds like this. So it feels a little bit like you're whispering, but with your mouth closed. It's the same action you do when you're whispering. And closing the epiglottis so less air can pass through and out makes it so you can extend your breath. It's easier to extend your breath because the opening through which the breath goes is more narrow. And also that sound is something that you can focus on with your with your senses. You're staying with that sound instead of sounds outside of you happening. So this is a really good one for the sense withdrawal aspect of the practice. Sorry, my voice, it's very, it's early in the morning and I haven't spoken to anyone yet. Next, so you can practice this breath a little bit with me in the beginning of the practical sequence. And then we have to discuss the drishti. Drishti is the gazing point. So that means for all the asanas and the whole sequences that we're doing in Ashtanga Yoga, we have a drishti for each pose. So a lot of the times it's at the tip of your nose, and I've always interpreted that as kind of looking at something that's just a little bit in front of my nose, somewhere in the air, because I don't want to be cross-eyed all the time. So I'm just gently gazing to this point. Sometimes it's up to your third eye. And even if you look up to your third eye, try to not strain your forehead, just keep it soft and look up. And then some are going to be at your thumbs or at the tip of the fingers, etc. There's different drishtis. Next, you wanna also be aware of bandha. And bandha means energy locks. In Ashtanga Yoga, we mostly use Uddiyana Bandha, which is flying upwards bandha, so in the lower abdomen. And then Mula Bandha, which is on your pelvic floor. And it's kind of containing, at least the explanation is that it contains energy from leaking downwards, because gravity pulls everything downwards. And you're just trying to kind of use your bandhas to send energy back up. If anybody's interested, I can explain about these concepts some more, but in the beginning, just take it as is. You have your pelvic floor, you have your lower abdomen that you try to, it's not a hard contraction, it's just energy-wise, you're trying to think of energy rising up. And then combined with the breath, that means that you're actually breathing into a rib cage that moves out, up, and into the back. So instead of pushing your belly out when you inhale, I can show you. So instead of pushing your belly out, you're trying to breathe more up and all around. So even just doing that and seeing how it feels, for me, I can tell immediately that this way lifts up energy and it moves my rib cage. It trains all my rib cage muscles and diaphragm to really expand, and even some of those oscillatory breathing muscles that some people always say like don't use those. Well, you can still use them if you want to work on expanding all around in your practice. Just don't overuse them, don't force anything. That's the main thing when you practice Ashtanga yoga. No matter if it's your breath or any asana or any transition between asanas, don't force it. Try to approach the whole thing with this like gentle approach. This is gonna make your life easier practicing Ashtanga yoga, because I used to, like, even if I tried to be like that in my old Ashtanga yoga life, I still kind of missed the mark. And now that I focus on everything being gentle, even if I put effort, I integrate the practice way better into my daily life. Okay. Then we have to talk about vinyasa. Vinyasa just means that every movement is linked to the breath. So as I raise the arms, I inhale and it starts and finishes at the same time. Exhale, full down. So each movement and each breath, they work together. It's not like, can you see or hear the difference? So you're trying to stay in that symbiotic relationship of breath and movement. Sometimes the word vinyasa is also used for a jump through and jump back between different asanas. So just that process of jumping back, chaturanga, up dog, down dog, jumping through again. So just be aware of that. This can also be called do a vinyasa between right and left side of a seated asana, for example. But the original, or like, yeah, I don't know. Basically the meaning is just linking movement and breath together. Okay, then there's there's two things. At the beginning and the end of the practice, we chant a mantra. And the opening mantra, just a very rough meaning translation, is we're giving thanks to all of the teachers that came before us, so that they basically taught the knowledge to their students, and that student eventually became a teacher and then kept on teaching, and so the knowledge has been traveling through teacher-student relationships for a long time, and we're giving thanks to that lineage. And the closing mantra is just very roughly translated also, is just sending out the wish that all living beings may live in harmony with each other, which is quite nice. So I actually had a friend tell me, I went to try Ashtanga yoga because of you, and then we were chanting stuff and I felt like I was in a sect. And then I explained to her, well, generally, originally, I always say this word originally, but the way yoga was being transmitted and practiced in India for ages, it kind of always included mantra. And if we remove yoga completely from doing any mantra and just purely do it on a physical level, it's kind of watered down and made palatable for, like a Western mind, probably. So if you know the translations of these mantras and that they're saying something that you probably appreciate too, maybe makes it more comfortable for you to hear them, and you don't have to chant them if you don't want to, but if you know what they mean, you might want to. And creating those sounds of the mantra can be really nice and have a very a very, for me at least, a very positive input onto your nervous system, because the vibration they create and using your mouth and everything, it stimulates the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is the biggest nerve in our body, responsible for the rest and digest aspect of our autonomic nervous system. So that's really lovely. About the history of Ashtanga yoga, just really roughly, there used to be this yogi in India called Tirumalai Krishnamacharya, who is, people call him the father of modern yoga. He personally, the story goes, went to the Himalayas to his teacher Brahmacharya and studied with that guy for 7 years in some forest or cave. I think there's two different stories going around. And then he went out into the world to teach what he learned, which is the vinyasa-based physical yoga style. He didn't have the exact same sequences that we practice nowadays of Ashtanga yoga, but he had different students. He was teaching at the Mysore Palace in India, Mysore, that city. And then Pattabhi Jois was one of his students, and also Iyengar was one of his students, Indra Devi. Many different people were his students that went on to be big yoga teachers themselves. And Pattabhi Jois was the student that developed the sequences of Ashtanga yoga that we now practice. They weren't exactly fixed in the same manner from the start. They changed a little bit over the years, but the groundwork of the primary and intermediate series, it mostly remained unchanged. And so I'm not 100% sure, but I do think that he came up with the Surya Namaskara A and B in the beginning of the practice. At least that's what his granddaughter Sharmila said when I went to the workshop with Saraswati, who is Pattabhi Jois's daughter, in London. And he was found by Western people in India in the 70s, and they even invited him eventually to come to the US and stuff, and he did workshops abroad, and more people got to know him. And then some yoga styles actually developed out of Ashtanga yoga, Para yoga, Chivamukti yoga, this type of stuff. These people, they all studied with Pattabhi Jois and learned Ashtanga yoga. And then Pattabhi Jois's daughter, Saraswati, she also was a teacher. Always his son, Manju Jois, is a teacher. Sharad Jois, the grandson of Pattabhi Jois, was the lineage holder in the recent, I think, 2.5 decades. But he passed away 2 years ago, an early death, which was pretty sad for a lot of people and very unexpected. And now the community is just globally spread. Let's see how it goes. And there's also, just to mention that aspect, Ashtanga yoga has a reputation of being culty or too physical or very dangerous. You get injured from Ashtanga. People who practice Ashtanga yoga are rigid, or these are kind of some of the public opinions around Ashtanga yoga. And personally, I think all of these things are human behaviors, and therefore they can come up in any kind of community or social sphere. There is also that aspect that Pattabhi Jois used to practice adjustments on students that were either physically extremely intense and injurious, or that he inappropriately touched female students. Like, after some time, apparently, of this happening, he stopped doing that. But yeah, that's basically a part of the history. Still, a lot of people don't really speak about it nowadays. I just want to mention that this is part of the history. So it has shown that even someone who is extremely into studying yoga and teaching it and having a lot of knowledge in philosophy and Sanskrit can have very, very human faults and flaws. So that could be your lesson before you even start, to not idolize anyone in this field, and to just, even if you find a teacher and you use the opportunity to have the teacher be your guide, and you maybe explore this topic of surrender to the process and to the teacher, which can be very nice. Just be mindful that it doesn't go the direction where you're giving away your agency and autonomy. And if you happen to practice in a shala where you feel like there's unhealthy dynamics, keep your boundaries up or find another place. Just to keep that in mind. And then Ashtanga yoga being injurious, also I believe that this is a human thing. If you approach a practice in a way that is challenging you in ways that could potentially lead to injury, you should not just push through it or into it. If you have obstacles, some people may need to do a little bit of extra work outside of practice if their goal is to create the physical representation of the final form of the asana. But you don't have to be able to do the final form of the asana to practice Ashtanga yoga. You don't have to do the full sequence every day if you don't have the energy for it. And also, if you start learning it in a Mysore style setting, you will start with such a short portion that you can actually do it almost daily, because Ashtanga yoga practice classically is practiced 5 to 6 days a week. You have one day that is always a rest day, and then every other week you have an additional rest day, which is a full moon and new moon. And also, if you are menstruating, you don't have to, but it's recommended to take 1 to 3 days off on the days you feel the worst. Personally, for me, that's sometimes the day or 2 days just before where I feel the worst. So yeah, it's an almost daily practice. And if it's an almost daily practice, approach it with the mindset that don't push anything so intensely that you cannot do it tomorrow. You want to walk away from your practice feeling more energized throughout your whole day, and you want to feel fresh and energized to practice the next day. And if you approach it like that, there is not so much chance that you burn out or get an injury. And if you are approaching a part of the series where there's physically something you're very restricted at, I actually recommend doing some extra work. And if you are lost on how to, for example, get more external rotation in your hip that is safe, or if you're struggling how to open your shoulders and hip flexors more for back bends that feel safe, it might be worth investing in a private with me online. I try to usually work in a way where you just do one session, troubleshoot, you get a plan and you work on your own, so you don't have to go to recurrent privates. I don't want to take people's money, but I also know that I've studied the body extensively over the last 16 years, and I have become a physiotherapist in the meantime. I have healed my chronic pain and chronic fatigue. I am able to practice 5 to 6 days a week of Ashtanga yoga since several months without any issues. So I do feel like I am going to make life easier for you if you approach an obstacle, or if it happened that you injured yourself despite taking all the precautions. I do feel like I can help you. So just to put that out there. And now lastly, Mysore style versus lead classes. Traditionally, Ashtanga yoga is practiced in Mysore style manner, which means within the time slot that is open, you arrive at any point where you still have enough time until the end of the time slot to finish your practice. So maybe your practice is 40 minutes. Mysore class runs from 8 to 10 a.m. So you can still only start at 9:20 if you get done by 10. And also you practice however far you learned in the sequences in your own rhythm of breath. So you learn the series by heart and move through it, and then the teacher is there, and it's like a one-on-one interaction in a group setting. So all you hear is the Ujjayi breath of everybody around you, and it's a very calm and very focused and very relaxing atmosphere. And that class is like you commonly know yoga classes. Someone is standing at the front, calling out asanas, maybe demonstrating, and then the group does everything together. And this is cool to learn the little details between asanas and the pattern and the count of the breath. Okay, this introduction was way longer than I thought it would be, but I just like to provide the context for it. So now we get to go practice. Stand at the front of your mat, big toes touching, and then take a few breaths of this breathing with sound that I mentioned in the beginning. Bring your hands in front of your chest and you can listen to me singing the opening mantra. Vande Gurunam Charanarvinde Sandharashita Swatma Sukhavabodhe Nishreyase Jangarikayamane Samsara Hala Hala Muashantye Abahu Purushakaram Shankachakrasi Tarinam Sahasra Shirasam Shvetam Pranamami Patanjalim Om. Surya Namaskara A. Ekam inhale, hands up, look at your thumbs. Dve exhale, fold down, look towards your knees. You can bend your legs. Trini inhale, look up. And Chatwari, step or jump back and then lower to the floor. Pancha inhale, lift the chest. And Shat, exhale into downward facing dog. Again, you can bend your knees here if straightening the legs makes you close off your shoulders. Focus on inhaling and exhaling with sound in this downward facing dog. And also the way that I'm showing you the sun salutations is I start with a beginner version and then progressively build up to the full version. Finish your last exhale and then Sapta inhale, step forward, look up. Ashtau exhale, look at your knees. Nava inhale, hands up, look at your thumbs. And then on the exhale, Samastitihi, starting position. And again, Ekam inhale, hands up, look at your thumbs. Dve exhale, fold down. Trini inhale, look up. Chatwari exhale into Chaturanga, lowering to the floor. Pancha inhale, up dog or cobra like before. And Shat exhale into downward facing dog. We usually breathe 5 times here. 1. Focus on the sound. 2. 3. 4. And 5. Sapta inhale, step forward, look up. Ashtanga, exhale, fold down. Nava, inhale, hands up, look at your thumbs. And exhale, Samastitihi, last one. Ekam, inhale, look up. Dve, exhale, fold. Trini, inhale, look up. Chatwari, exhale, chaturanga. Pancha, inhale, up dog or cobra. She, exhale, into downward facing dog. And again, 5 breaths. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Sapta, inhale, step forward, look up. Ashto, exhale, fold. Nava, inhale, hands up, look up. Exhale, Samastitihi. Surya Namaskara, P. Ekam, inhale into chair, hands up. Dve, exhale, fold down. Trini, inhale, look up. Chatwari, exhale into chaturanga. Pancha, inhale, up dog or cobra. Shat, exhale, down dog. Sapta, inhale, right leg steps forward, hands up. Ashtau, exhale, hands down and into a chaturanga. Nava, inhale, up dog. Dasha, exhale, another down dog. Ekadasha, inhale, left foot forward, hands up. Dwadasha, exhale, hands down into chaturanga. Trayodasha, inhale, up dog. Chaturdasha, exhale, down dog. And now 5 breaths here. Focus on the breath with sound. 1. Surya Namaskara B is very difficult. It's normal that it's hard to breathe. 2, 3, 4, and 5. Panchadasha, inhale, step forward, look up. Shodasha, exhale, look at your knees. Saptadasha, inhale into a chair, look up at your hands. Exhale, Samastitihi. Again, Ekam, inhale, hands up. I'm showing you now how to do it as a beginner. Dve, exhale, fold. Trini, inhale, head up, and Chatwari, exhale, lower down. Pancha, inhale, cobra. Shat, exhale, down dog. Sapta, inhale, Virabhadrasana A. Ashtau, hands down, step back, exhale. Nava, inhale. And Dasha, exhale, down dog. Ekadasha, left leg forward, inhale. Dwadasha, exhale, chaturanga. Trayodasha, inhale. And Chaturdasha, exhale, last downward facing dog. Breathe 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Panchadasha, inhale, step forward, look up. Shodasha, exhale, fold down. Saptadasha, inhale, hands up. And exhale, Samastitihi. Last one, showing you the full version again. Ekam, inhale, hands up into chair. Dve, exhale, fold down. Trini, inhale, look up. Chatwari, step or jump back. Pancha, inhale, up dog. Shat, exhale, down dog. Sapta, right leg forward, Virabhadrasana A, inhale. Ashta, exhale into chaturanga. Nava, inhale, up dog. Dasha, exhale, down dog. Ekadasha, inhale, left leg forward, Virabhadrasana. Dwadasha, exhale, chaturanga. Trayodasha, inhale, up dog. Chaturdasha, exhale, down dog. 5 breaths here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Panchadasha, inhale, step or jump forward, look up. Shodasha, exhale, look at your knees. Saptadasha, inhale into chair, look up. And exhale, Samasthiti. Inhale, jump your feet hip width apart, catch the big toes and look up. And then you exhale into Padangushasana. If you need to, you can bend your knees. During the sun salutations, I was counting with Ekam Dve Trini, which is 1, 2, 3 in Sanskrit. And usually this is what's being done during lead classes. But because I have to do a lot of verbal cueing, I will stop that from now. Inhale, lift the head. Exhale, put your palms under your feet. Inhale again and exhale, fold into Padahastasana, 5 breaths. Again, feel free to bend your knees if needed. 2, 3, 4, and 5. Inhale, lift the head. Exhale, get into Samasthiti. And then inhale, open your step to the right. And exhale, get into Trikonasana, either up here, strong leg, or catching your big toe. 1, look up to the fingers of the top hand. 2, 3, 4, and 5. Inhale, come up to the center. Turn your feet for the left side. Exhale. Breathe 5 times. 1, 2, 3. Try to gaze at your fingertips of the top hand. 4 and 5. Inhale, come up and then turn to your right side again. This time, the opposite hand comes to the outside of the knee, outside of the shin, or outside of the foot on the floor, and you twist into your triangle, again looking up at your fingers. 3, 4, and 5. Inhale, come up to the center and twist to your left side. Exhale, hand outside of the leg or foot where you can place it. Looking up, gazing at the fingertips. 2, 3, 4, and 5. Inhale up to the center. Exhale, Samasthiti. Inhale, again, step to your right. Exhale into side angle. Introduction version is elbow on leg, but strong legs and core, so you could still lift it off. And then full version is hand on the floor, but still super strong and supported. There's a diagonal line from your pinky toe to your fingers, and you look up into the palm of your hand. Inhale again, come up to the center. Exhale, second side, and again, take 5 breaths here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Inhale, come up to the center. Exhale, twisted side angle. You can either rest your hands on your knee and turn, or you go with prayer hands into the twist. Full version is again hand outside of the foot on the floor, and then the other arm diagonally points up. Breathe 5 times. 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale up to center. Turn to your left. Exhale and find your version of your twisted side angle. 1, 2, This is a very difficult asana, so don't worry if it feels hard. Inhale up to center. Exhale, samastitihi. Inhale, hands on hips, step to your right, feet facing forward. Exhale, fold down. Inhale, hands to the floor, lift the head. Exhale into Prasarita Padottanasana A. You're trying to eventually bring the crown of your head towards the floor, and you can also bend your knees if it feels inaccessible with straight legs in the beginning. You should have been breathing this whole time, in total 5 breaths. Now again, inhale, lift the head. Exhale, hands on hips. Inhale, stand up. Exhale there. Inhale, open the arms to the side. Exhale, back to your waist. Inhale, big chest, and exhale, fold down into the B version. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Inhaling all the way up. Exhale there. Inhale, open your arms to the side. Exhale, interlace the fingers behind your back. Try to straighten your arms. Inhale. And exhale, fold down. Hands are trying to stretch your arms towards the floor. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Inhale all the way up. Exhale, hands to waist. Inhale, big chest. Exhale, fold halfway. Inhale, catch your big toes. And exhale into D. Last time, 5 breaths here. Also, if you find it difficult to stay on the count of my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just keep breathing and keep the breath even. It doesn't matter if you breathe exactly as I count, because I might actually also mess up a little bit. What matters the most is that you try to get the correct inhales and exhales in and out of the position. Now inhale, lift the head, exhale there. And then inhale, hands to waist, come all the way up. Exhale, samastitihi. For the next asana, you bring the fists together behind your back or hands into reverse prayer. Inhale, step and turn all the way to the back of the mat. Exhale, fold down. Breathe here 5 times. This is Parshvottanasana. So basically, you try to keep a steady breath, and eventually you will learn the sequence by heart, and you can do your own 5 breaths into every state of the asana, not being depending on my counts. Inhale, coming up to center. Turn to the front of the mat and exhale, fold into your left side. 5 breaths here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Inhale, come up to center. Exhale into samastitihi. Uddita Hasta Padangushtasana. On the right side, I'm showing the beginner version first. Inhale, lift your knee and hold it with your hand. Breathe here 5 times. When I show my left side, I will show you the full expression of the asana. After your 5th inhale and exhale, you inhale, open the knee to your right side and look to your left, turning your neck. Breathing here 5 times 2. Holding your balance. And after the 5th breath, upon an inhale, you bring your knee back to center, look forward, and then exhale, hold the leg as high as you can. You could also try to straighten it here if you wanted to, and this goes for 5 breaths in total. After your 5th breath, you can release the leg. Now left side. Inhale, lift the leg up, catch the big toe. Exhale, fold over it. 5 breaths here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Inhale, lift up. Exhale, open the leg to the left and turn your neck to the right. Breathe 5 times here. 2, 3, open chest. 4, 5. Inhale, bring everything back to center. Exhale, fold down one more time. Inhale, fold up, and exhale, let go of the big toe, keeping your legs straight for 5 breaths. 3, 4, and 5. Now the same principle, I'm showing you the more accessible version first on the right. So you bring your leg into a figure of 4, and on an exhale you fold either halfway or if you can all the way down. Also you can keep facing the front of the mat for this. Breathe 5 times wherever you are able to reach or bend down. Inhale, lift the head. Exhale, bend your standing leg a little bit. Inhale, come all the way up. Exhale, leave the leg, samastitihi. And then left side, you can also try getting into a half lotus, and you want to have 0 pain in your knee joint. Grabbing behind your back, catching the big toe. And I'm facing the front of the mat now, showing you what it would actually look like. Exhaling, folding down. Breathing 5 times, so do the beginner version or this one, whichever feels accessible to you. 4 and 5. Inhale, lift the head. Exhale, bend the knee. Inhale, stand all the way up. And exhale, leave the leg, samastitihi. The last 2 asanas you just did were the first 2 asanas of primary series, and the ones before were the fundamental standing postures. Now inhale, lift the hands. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, lift the head. And exhale into chaturanga. On an inhale, go into your cobra or upward facing dog. On an exhale, into your downward facing dog. And now you try a step or a jump through. I'm showing first how you can step and sit down. Or if you feel a bit more agile, you can jump into that crossed position and swish your feet through. Now it's time for the final seated asanas. You can cross your legs and fold over, or what I'm also showing you is how you can go into a double pigeon position where the ankles and knees are stacked on top. And here it's also, if you have any pain in your knees, please go to an easier version. Normally you would do a lotus position here and fold over for 10 breaths. But as a beginner, if you cannot do a lotus, it makes sense to do your cross-legged or double pigeon position. 5 breaths on one side, and then 5 breaths on the other side. So you can inhale, come up, switch the side of your legs, and then again go back for 5 more breaths into that forward fold. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Inhale, coming up. Next, you bring the tips of your thumbs and index fingers together. The other 3 fingers are straight. Place them with palms up on your knees and try to really extend your breath here. So usually it's also 10 breaths, and I'm not going to count them. I want you to focus fully on hearing the sound of your own breathing and the expansion of your rib cage into all directions. Finish up your last extended deep breath and get mentally ready for the last asana, which is Utplutihi. The previous asana and Utplutihi are normally done in a lotus, so it's actually easier to lift your hips off the ground. But you can still try cross-legged. So inhale, lift up. Try to stay 5 breaths with the legs crossed one way. And it doesn't matter if the feet touch. And then after 5 breaths, switch how your shins are crossed. And again, try to lift yourself off the floor for 5 breaths. Strong arms, strong core. And then you're done. You can either step back, which I'm showing now, or you can try to do a jump back, which I also fully can't do, into your chaturanga. And then inhale, upward facing dog or cobra. Exhale, you get into downward facing dog, really lengthening out the back of your legs. And then inhale, you jump forward between your hands, lifting the head. Exhale, fold down. Inhale, stand all the way up, raise your arms up, look at your thumbs. Exhale into Samastitihi, and it's time for the closing mantra. You can either just listen or you can try to join in on the ohms. Swasti prajabhya paripalayantam nyayena margena mahi mahesha go brahmanebhya shubhamastu nityam loka samastaha sukhino bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om. Now it's time for another half sun salutation to the floor. So inhale, raise the arms up. Exhale, fold down. Inhale, lift the head. And exhale, step or jump back into chaturanga. Inhale, up dog or cobra. Exhale, down dog. And then from here, you come to the floor and lay down onto your back for the final relaxation. On the first few steps that you take learning Ashtanga yoga, it's quite common to have such a short finishing sequence. But when you keep practicing and you go to a teacher, they can actually show you the back bending and also the longer finishing sequence that comes before the 3 seated asanas that you just did. And then for final relaxation, your goal is to calm down your nervous system, keep your forehead soft, your eyelids soft, stop any technique of breathing, and feel yourself drifting heavily into the floor. I am not going to guide you through the final relaxation. I'm just going to leave the video running for a bit. And you can choose to take that rest for however long you want. But I recommend taking at least 5 minutes. If you have time, 10 is really, really nice. So thank you for joining this practice. And if you have any questions, please drop them in the comments.